right, so look at this. Yeah. Do 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 do. Mm-hmm. 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 Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, maybe. It's working, I think, kind of. So it turns out scheduling these things is a lot harder. Or like starting up these things when they're scheduled is a lot harder than just starting one up. I have to do weird, odd, uncomfortable things to get this started up when I schedule them. So I think from now on, I'm just going to last minute go live. Whatever. There are 4 of you in here, huh? Tweet out a link to this one because the other the other one's dead. That's fun. Happy Friday. Dancing on Twitter. Did I promise dancing on Twitter? I forget. Now I'm too hungover to dance. I might yak on you if I start dancing. Sorry, Peter. I apologize. So I have spent my morning messing with. I had to set up an AWS account and stuff, and I had to upload the private dancing. Yes. Well, there are 6 people in here, so it wouldn't be very private. So I just spin up an AWS account and set up an S3 bucket with permissions and all sorts of other goofy stuff this morning on top of trying to rattle off some blog posts and whatever before the weekend hits. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun time. Of course, I set up I followed Amazon's best practices in that regard because leaving the root user as the only user seemed like a terrible idea. I did have it was kind of funny because I had to create a public bucket, and for a while it just kept saying like access denied every time I tried to make my public bucket public. And the more I say public bucket, the more I regret saying public bucket. But yeah, it kept saying access denied, and it turned out that I had to like allow the making of I had to allow making public buckets public, which is a weird thing to have to do first. Like it should say that this bucket is not allowed to go public. It's goofy. Yeah, I have a bunch of IM users now to confuse hackers. So like they'll get in, they'll think they can do something, but they really can't. It's like dozens of IAM users that will lead them nowhere. Yeah, it was weird, like, because I want to be able to share slides and stuff at the Bits pre-con and other training stuff that I'm doing. So I needed to have like a bucket that everyone could just freely download from, but not do anything else from. So there it is. I don't want to use Dropbox for that because I don't know. I suppose there's a reason. I don't really know what it is. Now that I got this fancy business Dropbox account, I don't know. I just don't know anymore. Oh, man, I don't know what other fun things have happened since last week. I got business insurance. I got contracts from lawyers. I sent out my first invoice. I don't know. It's been an okay week. It wasn't a very big invoice. I probably haven't made that little money in a week since, I don't know. I would say when I should have been in college. And I don't know. It's an okay week. I feel like I got a lot of stuff figured out in here that was kind of up in the air and unsure last Friday. All right, there are 5 of you, but no one's asking questions, so this might be quick. I'll give it another couple minutes, but then I have to go back to doing, well, I guess being unemployed, doing my work. This woman's work. It's a good Kate Bush song. I wish that this thing would show me the list of users so that I could, like, why is there no list of users? Participants. There we go. Oh, it's just me and one other. Who are the other people in here then? This is ridiculous. Yes, Josh is here. Thank you, Josh. I guess by participant it means people who have actively said something and not people who I don't know. I actually don't even know. I don't understand these things anymore. I seem to have lost all touch with reality. If no dancing, what about whiskey? I have to go to the gym later. Stupid. So I don't think I'm going to start drinking whiskey this early. Peter asks, your post on says your post on fragmentation was timely for frustrating reasons. Trying to make the best of it, but would you say it's worth my time to dig into fragmentation intervals? What do you mean fragmentation intervals? Like how often you run defrags, or how often things become fragmented, or what exactly is a fragmentation interval? Not sure what that means. Internals. Oh no, I wouldn't touch that. I don't think it's really worth the effort. I I remember every time I opened an internals book, I think the first like 3 or 4 chapters were just like a filler waste of time on like how things are stored, because and it's good stuff to like know once, or like know like a little bit and then just kind of tuck away, but I don't think it's ever helped me solve much of a performance problem on a server. It's always one of those things where it's just like, yes, it's very neat to know that there are 8K pages and they get stored on extents. They get stored in data files, and data files have these games and S games and PFS pages and all this other stuff. But it's not. I'm like, I never like looked at that and went, oh, well, That's why this query is slow, because that's just never happened. It's always been some other, like, well, sometimes basic reason. Other times it's more fun. I think Adam Mechanic has one of my absolute favorite talks, and it's called it's about like the 5 things that cause 95% of your query performance problems. So it's on YouTube too. You can find it if you look for Adam Mechanic videos on here. But I think the real wisdom in there is that it usually is just one of one of a few really basic things that often causes the majority of performance issues. And once you get outside of those things, that's when like the really interesting stuff comes in. Like I'm gonna write a blog post today, I think, about how when you it's like when you write a query that will find data, sometimes it's a lot faster than a query that won't find data. Farah says, what monitoring tool do you wish existed but doesn't? I don't know. I guess mine. So the kind of interesting thing about not working for Brent anymore is, a lot of the work that I put into the first responder kit is now kind of, I mean, it's not off limits, but it's a bit awkward to go back to at this point. So I'm, gonna have to do some of my own stuff around that. As far as stuff that I wish, stuff that I wish monitoring tools did that I don't think exists very well is correlating or like capturing relevant details of catastrophic events. And I don't mean catastrophic like the server crashed or the server like failed over or something. I mean like you hit thread pool or like resource semaphore or like just CPU pegged up to 100%. I wish that when that stuff happened, there would be like this emergency mode for monitoring tools where they would just like okay, like this crazy thing is happening. We need to focus on like these few things instead of just running the same dumb queries. And they're like, oh, TempDBs might be funny. Like stop looking at disk activity and just be like, no, we need to focus on this. Like we need to like really zoom in on what's happening there instead of just like running the like goofball template queries that kind of keep doing. I'm flipping around, looking at stuff. Chris is on Twitter saying he's watching. Why don't you ask a question, Chris? That would be really helpful. I don't have anything to talk about. Oh boy, Josh says I have a parameter sniffing question from the mastering query tuning class that you worked on. Wow. Okay, you can ask me a very general parameter sniffing question, and maybe I'll be able to answer that. Because if I have a stored proc that either gets a big plan, meaning parallel big memory grant, or a small plan, should I try to keep the big plan to avoid the small plan spilling? I think that's a pretty good band-aid. Like that's a pretty good temporary fix, because a lot of the time when the big plan runs, unless the big plan runs very concurrently and those additional resources become a point of contention, either via parallelism you hit thread pool weights, or via the memory grants you run into resource semaphore, then generally, yes, that's a pretty good band-aid until you can dig deeper into maybe getting a good plan for all variations of the query. But that can be really tough to do, especially when stored procedures, especially like when you're learning about parameter sniffing, a lot of the examples are just like a single parameter that gets passed in, and like that single parameter can cause enough variation in a plan. But then you get to the real world, you get back to your job, and there's like 5, 10, 15, 20 different parameters that can get passed in, and some of them can be null, and some of them can cause real problems. So if you need to like quick fix parameter sniffing stuff, then sometimes keeping the big plan can be worthwhile. But sometimes you really it can cause problems downstream if it's a highly concurrent thing. So like what I would do is I would test, if I get that big plan, how many of it can I run at once, right? So like, use like SQL query stress or O stress or something, and just run the big plan and like add threads to it until you either like run out of worker threads and hit thread pool, or you run out of memory available and hit resource semaphore. So I'd probably like do one of those two things and then be like, all right, well, like this is like the limit for how many of this query can run. And then think about, like, as far as your workload goes, like, do you have a bunch of other queries that might be running alongside it? How many copies of this query can run? How many like other of these other queries might come along? There's a everyone, when they think about concurrency, they just think about kind of standard like locking and blocking on the server, right? Where they're like, well, I can't run like 3 of these updates at once because they'll block each other, or I can't run this update and these other select queries because they'll block each other, right? And that's when people fall into no lock, or maybe the slightly smarter decision to use an optimistic isolation level. But like I think the next step in learning about concurrency is really like understanding that queries interact with each other and the hardware in very particular ways, and that it's very easy to become very, like I said, I would say non-concurrent when enough queries run. Peter says, could you get fancy with Resource Governor? So Resource Governor has some really interesting stuff, especially I think for memory grants, but it shouldn't be called Resource Governor. It should be called Query Throttler, because all it really does is like limit the resources that a query can use, and often that has some rather bad side effects on performance. Yeah, parameter sniffing is hard, and it's one of those things where out of all of, I think, the intelligent query processing stuff that Microsoft has been working on, I really wish that parameter sniffing were coming to the forefront. Because I think that is, like, as far as like, if you want to think about intelligent query processing, it's nice that you can switch join types, and it's nice that you get memory grant feedback between executions, and it's nice that some stuff has happened with functions and table variables coming up in 2019. But man, parameter sniffing is still, I think, like the biggest problem. And if you wanted to really have intelligent query processing, being able to store, I think, branched iterations of the plan, like make some different plan choices along the way for things, if depending on the parameters that get passed in. Like, I don't think you should have multiple copies of a plan, but I think you should have multiple iterations of a plan, and that you could do more to say, well, instead of just reusing one plan, we'll reuse like one of 3 or 5 plans depending on what parameters get passed in. So I think that might be like a good next step for the intelligent query processing crew, would be to do something like that. It's just something that, like, every time. Well, back when I had clients, that was always a big problem for them. What day is your SQL Bits pre-con? Boy, that's a good question. Let me check. My SQL Bits pre-con is it's it's on the SQL Bits website. I'm an idiot. I don't know why I didn't just look there. I think it's the second day. Sessions, training days. Yeah, mine is on Thursday. Total server performance tuning. So Thursday, February 29th. The training days are Wednesday and Thursday. So mine will be Thursday. And if you're going on Wednesday, you should definitely go check out Aaron's session, because Aaron, I think, has a really cool one. And if it turns out that mine is sold out, I think Penal's would be a good choice to go to as well on there. So that's fun. Right? Good stuff. Let's see here. Farah says, what were the most common query performance problems you ran across as a consultant? Were they mostly sniffing? So I would say a lot of them were parameter sniffing. Other ones that were quite common were around indexing, where it was either a general lack of indexing or a general like abundance of indexing, and none of the indexes, like someone added a lot of indexes a long time ago, and just never revisited them. And as like code changed, queries changed, the way the app worked changed, no one ever revisited the indexes, and we're like, oh, cool, like we could get rid of these 5 indexes that are somehow on the same single column over and over again, and we could maybe add some other indexes that'll help the queries that we're running today. All right, so those are very common. Stuff with functions was always very common. People selecting a lot more data. Actually, there were a number of really funny incidents where you would people would be like, oh, we have these queries that run, and they populate like an Excel file or a dashboard or something, and they would just be like select star with no where clause, and you just be like, well, you can limit the data that goes there, because they would get it all into the application, and then people would do it like with the data that landed in the application. That was very fun. Mr. Sick asks, did you get to keep that home server I built? Yes, I did get to keep that. Brent was very nice about the things that I was allowed to keep in the layoff, including a lot of the training material that I had worked on there. I get to do my own thing with, because obviously I don't think Brent, I would imagine Brent wants to write his own material most of the or he could write things in a different way than I do. So I got to take the stuff that I worked on, and I will be using that for various stuff. I don't know if it's totally NDA. I don't think it's NDA anymore, but I put in an application to do videos with Pluralsight, and it was accepted, and I'm just working on getting hooked up with someone over there, and I'm going to be producing a couple courses for them, at least fairly immediately, and then talk about some additional courses that I might do for them, because it's I think Pluralsight's a pretty cool platform for that. And as much as I would love to say, hey, like I could set up a whole video training thing the way Brent has, that's like a little bit beyond the scope of what I can do quickly. So I'm going to do the Pluralsight thing for the foreseeable future, and then if that goes well, or if the consulting and training thing takes off in an appreciable way, then I'll try to put in some plumbing to do videos through my own site. Thank you, Mr. Thick. I'm excited to I'm not excited to be unemployed, but I am excited to be able to be free to kind of shape my own stuff the way I want to. That is a nice freedom to have, but we'll see how it goes. I don't think I'm going to become a suit and tie man anytime soon, but stuff like that is hard to forecast. Especially in January, when there is not a whole heck of a lot of work. I've been talking to some other people who do independent consulting, and I'm like, so how's your January going? And they're like, we thumb twiddling. It's like nothing doing. I don't feel too bad. I don't feel like I messed anything up yet, but I'm just waiting for waiting for January to thaw out a little bit, so I maybe get some more action over on my end. It would be nice to have a positive income stream by February. I think that would be maybe a lofty goal, but it's one that I'm going to go with. I don't know. Who else? Anyone else have anything? Anyone? We could have a brief discussion on what I should name the scripts that I work on. Obviously, Blitz is taken, so maybe let's call it SP Eric, and maybe it'll crash your server, and maybe it won't. Maybe it'll run DBCC right page. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it'll just change weird settings. I don't know yet. We'll see. I remember at the DBA days that we wrote a chaos sloth, or I wrote a chaos sloth script, and it was pretty fun. And then it would go through and change weird settings. It would change like max stop and cost threshold and max memory and some other stuff. And I always thought, man, it'd be fun to have one that did more stuff, like change like bigger settings, or like restart SQL or something like that, or just do crazy stuff, like use like XP command shell or something else to turn off the network or whatever. Yeah, random trace flags. But you'll have to send me your list of random trace flags if you want me to do that, Forrest, because you've got a better list than I do. I have like a markdown file with a few I've found helpful over the years, but I'm not good at keeping track of all of the trace flags. So you'll have to send me your list of ones that would be especially nefarious to turn on and off. Tech News says hello from India. Hello, Tech News. I am not in India, though I wish I was, because the food is wonderful. I think that's about my favorite food in the world. So like thinking about other stuff that script could do, I don't know. It's like drop indexes. Where am I from? I'm from America, I think. Sometimes I've been to Canada a few times. It's pretty nice there. Kevin says, when query tuning, it's easy to force a query to use a particular index using hints, but sometimes I want to see what the index optimizer would choose if the index it has chosen wasn't there. But I don't want to disable the index as it could be large and take too long to rebuild. I wish there was a hint that allowed to specify an index not to use. Ah, interesting. So good news and bad news. When you specify indexes, you can actually give a list of indexes that you want it to use. I wrote the post over on Brent's site a while back. Let me see if I can find it quickly. It was one of the bad idea genes posts. And as long as Brent's site's up, you can do this. There we go. Look at that. First try. It's amazing the way that works. I'm going to stick that into chat. So you can specify multiple indexes for a query to use. So if you know like the names or the IDs of all the indexes that you're okay with the optimizer having a choice of, and you know which ones you don't want it to look at, you can specify all the ones that you say like are interested in seeing it choose from, and then not specify the ones that you don't want to see. So that's one way to do it. I know it's not the greatest thing in the world. Like it would be much easier to say no, just don't use this one, rather than maybe you can use all of these, but it could be worse. I don't know. You could have absolutely no options there. That might be. I mean, the other thing is, well, I guess on a dev server, it still might be just as annoying. Yeah, I got nothing. I don't have a better idea on that, aside from the fact that you can specify all of the possible indexes that might be a yes, rather than specifying one that might be a no. I try to know a thing or two. I think that's the whole point of consulting, is to know a thing or two. So sometimes actually there are times when people like say something that's so wrong, it makes me question whether I know what I'm talking about or not. And that's always a frightening moment, because in my head I'm like, no, that's wrong, and I know it's wrong, and I know the right answer, but man, you are so convinced about this wrong thing that I'm starting to like doubt my own sanity. I'm like, I don't know what to do right now. I'm like trying to low key Google stuff and be like, this is wrong. There's no way this can be right. There's no way. And yeah, it's always weird. It's like brief losses of confidence when you're like, wow, this person is so spectacularly wrong. They are making me question like things that I've known for a decade, or things that I've like tested myself and looked at. I'm like, what on earth? How could you do that? All right. Any other questions? You funny peanutty people? There are significantly fewer people here this week. There were 22 last week, but maybe there was like luck, beginner's luck. Now I'm down to 8 people. You will only do SQL types? Yeah, that's all I really know about. I don't know about C# or anything else. So that's unfortunately. If I wish I knew more stuff. I'm terrible at PowerShell. I don't know what else. What else is there? I mean, I can talk about hardware a little bit. I like hardware, things like that. WinDebug, yeah. Except you're better at WinBag than I am, Forrest. So I don't know why you'd want me to talk about it. You have cracked some nuts in there that that I haven't been able to. What am I doing? Good question. What am I doing? I think I'm actually going to go get lunch because there are very sparse questions. So thank you for joining me. It was a fun-filled half hour of trying to figure out how to get this thing to work. I will most likely be back next week with another one or we'll see. Maybe not. Anyway, thank you, and see you next time.